Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another FutureFight Vanguard video. I don't know what I was doing with my hand right there. But welcome back to another FutureFight Vanguard video. Today we're going to be talking about the Nova Grappler deck from V-EB06, Light of Salvation, Logic of Destruction. Got it. But yeah, we're going to be talking about the Nova Grappler deck. The Nova Grappler deck is actually my favorite deck out of the four decks that come out of this set, so to speak. It's really good. I've been waiting a long time for Novas to be, at least decent again. So it's really cool that they're going to be getting some good support and that they're going to be quite decent / playable in standard. So we're gonna get right into the list. However, before we do, be sure to leave a like on the video if you guys end up enjoying the video. Comment down below letting me know what you think of the video and kind of like your builds or what your thoughts on the build is, or your thoughts on Novas. Maybe you're a longtime Nova fan, you were waiting for it to get good again too, because they've been shafting us ever since set 1. So unfortunately we always have to come out in the same set as Kagero, get support, so that's kind of terrible, but can't really help it. At least it's better than Royals, right? But also be sure to subscribe, click the bell button down below so that you don't have to miss any future content, and be sure to check out our Patreon if you guys are interested in Cardfight Empire exclusive stuff. I'm starting to put everything over on there as well. Also be sure to check out our sponsor, Dabbers Cards and Games, local card shop in Georgia, does awesome things for the community, has singles, both online and on site, and they also have merchandise as well, a lot of it from Japan. So be sure to check them out whether you're in Georgia or you're just visiting, or from the comfort of your own home in another state. So let's get right into it. So obviously not a G zone because this is not premium, but yes, let's talk about our Nova Grappler deck. So the first card that we have, which is pretty much like our new ace card, is Beast Deity Azure Dragon. So Azure Dragon has 2 Vanguard abilities. The first one is when it's placed, counterboss 1, draw a card, call a card from your hand to rearguard circle, and attack your opponent's Vanguard with that unit. And if the attack did not hit at the end of the battle, then you get to stand that unit. So what this means is it adds a actually pretty interesting mechanic to Nova Grappler in that they're able to attack in the main phase before setting up for their battle phase. So this is another way how they get around not having stand triggers in standard. So you're able to just do abilities to stand your rear guards and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. Like, it gets a decent amount of advantage and a good amount of pressure off on your opponent as long as they don't check a damage trigger. I kind of feel as though all the other Accel decks that they've put out most of the time are not really affected by 1 damage trigger. You kind of need 2 to shut them out completely, but like for this Nova Grappler deck, 1 damage trigger can easily like shut them out. So I don't agree with them making it like that. I also think that the first skill of Azure Dragon should have been an axe skill, not an auto, because that means in order to do Azure Dragon skill, you have to ride him every single turn. So you can only do that a maximum of 4 times. So that's just unfortunate. But the second ability is when it attacks, counterboss 1 and stand 1 of your rear guard. So this is pretty good because you try to rush your opponent to 5 as fast as possible, and then you play a rear guard with the Azure Dragon skill. You attack into their Vanguard. Let's just assume they're at 5 damage. So you attack with something, it restands, then you get to attack with it, then Azure Dragon, then it, and that's just like not including your other rear guards, just the unit that you played and Azure Dragon as well. Not to mention, if that unit that you played is Black Tortoise, then Black Tortoise has its own skill during the main phase to restand an attack, so that can add to your number of attacks quite nicely. As our backup grade 3, we actually run Insize Razor, but we run 4 of Maximum Riser just because he synergizes so well with Azure Dragon. Like, it makes you able to play down Maximum Riser off the skill, and then it just attacks for 32, and you don't need to play a booster. Not that you could boost the main phase attack anyways, but it does help against like control when you don't have to commit to make your attacks hit. So Vanguard Rearguard, when this card is not boosted, it attacks a Vanguard, it gets plus 10,000 power, so it becomes a 22k base by itself, 32 on an Accel circle, which is an amazing number. Then we have 1 Insize Riser, like I said before, as our backup grade 3 that you want to ride. You don't really want to ever ride Minimum Riser because it's just way better on rearguard. So you want to ride a Xur Dragon if you can, and then back up, go to Inside's Riser. Inside's Riser's ability is when it attacks, counterboss 1, and stand all of your rear guards on your additional rear guard circles. So but this basically means your Accel circles, stand everything on your Accel circles, which can be good and bad, depends on if you have a board setup or not. Then we have 4 Brutal Jack going into the grade 2s, or Genocide Jack as it's called in Japan. So it has 3 abilities actually. The first one is a continuous Vanguard rearguard ability that says during your turn this unit gets plus 10,000 power. Now because of how I know that old Brutal Jack worked, I think that they should have made this card gain 10,000 during yours and your opponent's turn, because it would at least allow you to not take pressure on turn 2, not get rushed down by things like Kagero and things that you already have a bad matchup to. Like it would be great if you had like defense for that. However, they did not do that, so that sucks. But you do get to hit force clans like for good numbers, because you're attacking for 19 by itself without a boost. Then the continuous rearguard ability after that says this unit cannot stand during the stand phase. A lot of you might view that as bad, but that's actually good because it synergizes really great with Scarlet Bird. And then it has an ability that says rest 2 rearguards and stand this unit. So the thing that I like about this is that you can actually rest itself with the skill of this, because it just says rest 2 rearguards. It doesn't say other rearguards, which is really important because a lot of the time, like let's say you have 2 Brutal Jacks on your board, one is standing, one's rested, and it came from last turn, then you can actually just play a card, like a rearguard or something like that, and then you can rest both of them, stand Brutal Jack up, and then basically use Scarlet Bird to stand all your rearguards up and then draw a card. So that's really good. Moving on to our next grade 2 that we talked about previously before, it is 4 Beast DD Black Tortoise. So Beast DD Black Tortoise has a rearguard ability during the main phase that activates. You can counterboss 1 and soul blast 1, then you get to stand this unit and attack your opponent's Vanguard with it, and if the attack did not hit at the end of the battle, stand this unit. So couple things to mention about this card. Really good in synergy with a Xur Dragon and its skill. Like if you play as a Xur Dragon, counterboss 1, you call Black Tortoise, you attack for 19 on the Accel circle, then it doesn't hit, and then you restand this, then you do Black Tortoise, then it doesn't hit, then you restand Black Tortoise, then you attack a Black Tortoise, and then you attack with the Xur Dragon, then you attack a Black Tortoise. So it's just really good as well. However, it does suffer extremely to damage triggers like I mentioned before, and also I guess I should mention that you guys can use this ability if if Black Tortoise is already standing. So if, for example, you go into a Xur Dragon, you swing with Black Tortoise, and then it restands because of a Xur Dragon, you can also use Black Tortoise to just attack with it. Counterboss 1, soul blast 1, attack, because it's already standing and you basically do as much as possible. Then we run 4 King of Sword. This is really just to help fight the force matchup. Against a lot of force matchups, we don't really make great numbers, so we'd like to be able to make great numbers, and that's where King of Sword comes in handy. His skill is Vanguard Rearguard Circle when placed from hand, Soul Blast 1, 2 of your units get plus 3,000 power, and then if you have 5 or more units, they get plus 5,000 instead of 3,000. So Soul is no big deal in this deck thanks to Shout, us running 4 Shout, so any Soul Blast effect that we have is not a big deal. It's really just Counterblast. But yeah. Moving on, we have our first grade 1 in the deck, which is Beast DD Scarlet Bird. I mentioned this card a couple of times in the last few minutes, but it has a really good ability, which is when placed during your main phase, Soul Blast 1, and you get to stand all of your units, including if you're Vanguard. So if you are locked down by Murakumo and you can't ride, this is really useful for you because Scarlet Bird just restands your Vanguard. So you can never get locked down totally by Zanbaku anymore in this deck. So that's really good. And then if you have 2 or more units that you stood and you have a Beast DD White Tiger in your soul, which is basically the starter for the deck, as long as you haven't soul blasted that out, then you can draw a card, which is really good. Then we have 4 Claydol Mechanic. I found less use for this card in this deck, but I guess there's nothing better, so to speak, to put in, so we have it in there. But its 2 rearguard abilities is when it's placed, if you have a total of 4 or less cards in your hand or rearguard circles, then you draw a card. I think that this card should have said if you have 4 or less cards in your hand, or if you have 4 or less rearguards, not both together. because the likelihood that you'll have less than 4 rear guards and hand together, it's like just very, very low. So I disagree with it being able to draw you a card for being in that crappy of a situation. But then you have the other rear guard ability that says when you counterblast, you can retire this unit and countercharge 1. So that's decent. You do need a way to countercharge in this deck because you do run through your counterblast extremely fast. So it's good that it does that. Then we have 4 Screaming and Dancing Announcers Shout, a classic card, but he does something really, really good, the V-Series version of him. So on the rearguard circle in the main phase, you can rest him, and then you and your opponent reveal the top card of your decks, and if they have different grades, then the fighter who revealed the greatest grade draws a card, and the fighter who revealed the lowest grade soul charges that card. And then if they have the same grade, you and your opponent both draw. So what this means is that this helps you get to your pieces a lot more, because we run a lot more 2s and 3s than regular decks do. So basically, you are able to pretty much ensure that most of the time you will check the higher grade. This also helps you get extra Azure Dragons to hand, extra maximum risers, all that stuff. So if it's a grade 3 off the top, you are going to draw it regardless. So it makes sure that your grade 3s don't go to waste. And the only worst thing that could happen is, like, let's say you top deck a trigger and then you have to put that trigger into your soul. You can still use the soul for soul blast, so it's not all bad at all. Then if your opponent's getting a card as well, a lot of people don't like this card because they're like, oh, my opponent will be able to draw. Well, it's not like a free draw for your, well, it's not like a an unpunishable draw from your opponent, should I say. Like, if your opponent is drawing off of this card, that means that they checked a higher grade than you, which at times will be, if you check like a grade 2 and they check a grade 3, they add a grade 3 to their hand. It doesn't add any shield value to their hand. It would just matter as far as like riding or something like that. But a lot of times you just try to kill them, you just try to kill them as much as possible. So a lot of times adding a grade 3 to their hand won't add any defensive value to their hand. So you'll be able to go ham regardless. Then as our starter, we run Beast DD White Tiger. We could run the other one, Battle Riser, but it does synergize with Scarlet Bird directly, so we are running this one. For our triggers, we run 8 front, 4 draw trigger, and 4 heal triggers. Not much to say about that. After your opponent checks a damage trigger, you really want to be able to attack with your Vanguard and check fronts to negate out their damage trigger. So loading up the game here, we're going to load up Novos 1. So we're playing against Kagero, first round, kind of unfortunate. We do ride, and then we call shout, we reveal, we both get a grade 2, so we both get a grade 2 to hand. He goes for Berserk Dragon, retiring my shout, and he gets a heal, so that's really good for him. We play Brutal Jack, we use shout again, and then he rides the great, and then attacks us, doesn't hit a trigger. So then we ride Azure, we attack with minimum riser, then we use King of Swords ability to give power. So we attack, we get a heal, and we get another heal, so we double heal, so blessed on our part. And then we are able to just attack with the rest of our rear guards to get some good damage off on the Kagero player. He does attack our rear guard with Overlord using the ability, and then he gets a heal trigger. So then he attacks into our Vanguard twice, so we ride another Azure, do the skill. And then we attack, we get a front trigger. He one passes us. And then we keep attacking him. I don't know why he didn't ride the waterfall in his hand. I guess he preferred to ride the great, but I didn't even know that he had a waterfall, so there's that. But our opponent attacked with 1 crit, restood, attacked with double crit. We checked the front trigger, and our opponent really couldn't do anything to us. So we play another King of Sword just to get power to hit his force. He PG's Vanguard, and then we attack for 14, 14, and 29. He does ride Waterfall now, finally, but we have more than enough shield to block it. And then he starts retiring our cards with his cards. He's going all in. He misses the Overlord check, and then he attacks for 51, which we guard for a 2 to pass. He checks a crit trigger and nothing else. Then we guard his other columns. We use Shout to get some advantage off of our opponent, just to get our rear guards out. And like I said, like, you still most of the time end up just killing your opponent, so you don't really have to worry about plussing them with shout. Also, if your opponent digs more than you, you can also just like thin out their deck, making it easier for them to deck out. But we did end up winning that one, so that's good. And then we have Nova Grappler Game 2. We're playing against the Star Hulk deck. This deck is also better against the Star Hulk deck because you don't run crits. So either way, when you attack, you know that you're going to be dealing at least 1 damage. Or you're going to be dealing 1 damage, should I say. And they can't really reverse your stand triggers or your front triggers until they get to grade 4, because their grade 3 doesn't affect front triggers. So that's really good for you as well. Unfortunately, our opponent double crits us, and we don't get the chance to heal out of it. So yeah, we didn't even get the chance to ride the Azure that we got the next turn, but it would have been a really good turn next turn if he didn't hit a damage trigger. So we would ride Azure, we would play the maximum riser, we would swing. Depending on if he guarded or not guarded, we would restand it. He would probably not guard that, so he would take it. Then we would have a Scarlet Bird for both of the Brutal Jacks, and we would have just gone ham. So that would have been really good for us if our opponent did not double crit us. Unfortunately, they did. So then we're playing the Star Hulk deck again. We ride this time, and we guard his first attack because we don't want to get crit like before. So then we attack. We have a Brutal Jack on our rear guard as well. Our opponent attacks our Vanguard, gets a crit. Fortunately, we get a heal to heal out of that. And then we do a Azure Dragon skill, attack for 22. Then we attack Vanguard, and then our opponent doesn't hit a trigger. So then he does hit a trigger on the second damage check, and then he quits the game here. I don't know particularly why he quit the game. I think that maybe he realized that it was like too deep, like he was going to lose or something like that, but I don't know. He just ended up like rage quitting the game. So then I recorded an extra game. So we have Nova's game 4. We're playing against the Star Hulk deck, but a different person. Our opponent rides, we block the first attack. Our opponent hits a draw trigger, which is unfortunate for us. Then another draw trigger when it's their turn. So another unfortunate event for us, but we just attack a Vanguard for 12. He does take the damage, so he goes into the grade 3. And like I said, like when they have this card that provides you with the extra drive triggers, then it matters less, I guess you would say, because we run front. So then we attack for 22, then 32. Our opponent rides the grade 4, so now he can reverse our front triggers. Sucky for us, but we take all 3 damage. We played maximum riser. We attack, hit the rear guard that we can attack. We do hit the third check, and what I didn't realize is that that card only makes you discard the normal units. So we actually would have had an extra shout to be able to do. So yeah, we would have had an extra shout, but fortunately it didn't matter. We just won the game anyways through our opponent's lack of shield and the restanding shenanigans. But yeah, that has been the Future Fight for Nova Grappler. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, like I said, all the information in the front of the video. Like, comment, subscribe, check out our sponsor, and check out the Patreon if you guys are interested in that as well. But with that being said, this has been Josh from Cardfight Empire, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace, guys.